So let's move along here. Now the glomerular filtration rate is something that's very important for how the kidney works. All right, filtration rate is kind of what determines, of course, how the urine gets made, um, and how much urine gets made, and things like that. So glomerular filtration rate, because of some of these actions of the afferent arteriole, because the kidney overall can affect blood pressure in the whole body overall. Okay, these factors all come together kind of to create a situation where the kidney, by varying these things, can actually control the filtration rate, keep it the same. Okay, so increased net filtration pressure increases glomerular filtration rate, increases solutes and water remaining in tubular fluid, increases substances in the urine, decreases filtrate reabsorption. Okay, so this is what happens if the body wants to do this by increasing net filtration. Okay, and increase the GFR, then it can do so. Remember, largely it does this through the control of the afferent and efferent arteriole, right? It opens up the afferent arteriole, allows more blood into the glomerulus. This can cause greater pressure, all right? If it backs up, if it closes up, if it constricts the efferent arteriole, this can cause the fluid coming in, the blood coming in, to back up and build pressure, okay? And then vice versa. It can constrict the afferent arteriole to allow less blood in to lower the pressure, and it can dilate the efferent arteriole to allow more blood out at a faster rate to lower the pressure inside. All right, and it's through these controlling of the pressure plus its control over the um, overall pressure, blood pressure from the heart, that and its influences there that allow the kidney to control the filtration rate. Okay, so processes within the kidney itself, intrinsic controls external to the kidney. Okay, again, intrinsic, the efferent arterioles, extrinsic, hormones that influence blood pressure. All right. So renal autoregulation, as we say, two mechanisms: myogenic response, tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism. Contraction, relaxation, smooth muscle of the afferent arteriole in response to stretch. Okay, kind of what I was just saying there. It can compensate and allow the GFR to remain normal, depending on what's going on with the body. It can either increase or decrease that. Okay, so that's all the myogenic response. Again, so the afferent arteriole, as you're looking, allows more or less in according to the blood pressure, how much blood there is. Blood pressure of the body lowers. Blood volume can change in the body and also affect the pressure. But the glomerulus itself can't affect a change in there. Okay. So limitations to maintaining GFR. Renal autoregulations, it says here, maintains normal glomerular pressure and blood pressure is within a certain range between 80 and 180 millimeters of mercury. So again, like it says, arterioles at maximum dilation. So if it gets to a maximum dilation and maximum constriction, all right, it can control it, but only to a certain extent depending on what the blood pressure is. Okay, its ability to do so isn't endless, and it's limited to what the blood pressure can be, but it varies according to what the blood pressure is. Okay, tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism, back up to the myogenic response. Um, so if glomerular blood pressure increased, amount of NaCl also increased, detected by macular densa cells and juxtaglomerular apparatus, results in further vasoconstriction of afferent arteriole. So one is the stretch receptor, and the other is the tubuloglomerular feedback. So the juxtaglomerular apparatus has its influence over it. So here you go. What happens if it's below, right here, below 80? Okay, it's below 80. You get urine production falls off. If it's above 180, too much urine gets produced. Okay, that's just the normal range. It can keep it normal. It can keep the filtration rate regulated in those ranges. Okay. Um, so looking at extrinsic controls, physiologic change in the GFR in contrast. So sympathetic stimulation during exercise emergency, vasoconstriction, afferent, efferent arterioles. Again, so this is just one way of controlling it, sympathetic stimulation. Um, as it says there, contraction mesangial cells decreases surface area of the glomerulus, decreasing GFR. Granular cells with juxtaglomerular apparatus release renin, results in angiotensin II production and contraction of mesangial cells. So now it's controlling, in an extrinsic way, it's controlling renin angiotensinogen and tensin, regulates blood pressure in the system, the whole circulatory system too. Um, Again, so it's controlling it through another way. Atrial natriuretic peptide, peptide hormones release, response to the heart, increases GFR through, okay, inhibits release of renin. So the renin is part of the kidney's way of making it work, okay. So sympathetic stimulation, as you see, it decreases glomerular filtration rate, okay. Increasing glomerular filtration rate through atrial natriuretic peptide, vasodilation, relaxation of mesangial cells, vasoconstriction, contraction of mesangial cells. Okay, so all these things together are regulating the glomerular filtration rate. All right. Um, so that we're looking at the filtration rate there, right? So remember the other two processes that create urine are tubular reabsorption and tubular secretion. So looking at the transport process, structures and conditions that influence reabsorption and secretion. Simple epithelium tubule wall equals the transport barrier. So what we're talking about here is re reabsorption, okay, transporting materials back into the blood, back into the fluid of the body out of those tubules. All right, they can go around the cells, the epithelial cells, paracellular, or they can travel through the cells. They have to travel into the cell, cross the cell, and then cross out of the cell and the basement membrane on the other side. Okay, so basically, we're looking at a good example here. Expand this a little bit. Here we go. Okay. So paracellular transport goes around the cells here. Transcellular transport goes through the cells. Now, those are the two ways that reabsorption occurs in the tubules. Okay. Um, and on these, we got what we call transport maximum. Maximum rate of substance that can be reabsorbed across the epithelium per a certain time. Okay. Again, depends on how many transport proteins there are in the membrane. So as we just saw, the transport proteins there in blue, right? The cells can regulate how much goes across them by regulating how many of those proteins there are. And there's what we call the renal threshold. Maximum plasma concentration of a substance can be transported in the blood without appearing in the urine. Okay. So beyond that threshold, it will appear in the urine. Like it's something that's supposed to be reabsorbed, but if there's too much of it, it's past the threshold and it can't reabsorb. Some of it stays in the urine. All right. Um, those that are reabsorbed completely, okay, at least in the healthy, theoretically healthy, normal kidney. Glucose, of course, is one. Um, Other kinds of substances, energy from sodium moving down sodium gradient allows glucose to come back in. So glucose is one. There you can see glucose reabsorption. It comes in with sodium. Okay. Um, Substances. Okay. Protein. Most not freely filtered due to size and charge. Small, medium size. Those proteins are put back into the blood across the cells. Sodium reabsorption, 90% or 100% of sodium reabsorbed from tubular fluid. So again, reabsorption of sodium. This is looking at sodium reabsorption overview here. So About 65% of that sodium comes back to the body in the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, then about 25% comes back through the nephron loop. Right? The other 10% is going to vary. It would come back in the DCT, the distal convoluted tubule, and collecting duct, but it depends on the regulation, how much the body needs that sodium, okay, and how much it needs water. It uses sodium to help pull water out too. So anyway, how much more gets absorbed depends on what the conditions of the body are. Okay, so sodium transport, you can see here, it gets across into the cell by membrane and out the back of it through the basement membrane through another membrane, another protein. That's the proximal convoluted tubules. Similar kind of thing going on, except there's just channels you can see here. Channels in the distal convoluted tubule. Um, Again, it kind of depends on the situation, what's needed. Okay. All right. So that's it for part 2. And I'm going to stop here. We're going to go to part 3.